Hey everyone, and welcome to the Balanced Bodies Blueprint. I am your host, Vinny Russo.
And I'm your co-host, Dr. Erin Stansfield.
And we're shifting gears from all the conventional fitness narrative you hear on most fitness podcasts, as our main emphasis lies in preventative healthcare, adopting a holistic approach to nutrition, and challenging the traditional views on various fitness topics.
Our mission with this podcast is to provide you with the information you need to achieve optimal health.
And on today's podcast, we have a very special guest. He has a good association with Dr. Erin here, not in just the fields that they are involved with, but also with unbiased science. So we'll give them a nice little plug in a little bit. But Dr. Joe Zagorski, would you please introduce yourself to our listeners so they know a little bit about your background and what you're doing, and then that'll kind of let them know what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Joe Zagorski. I am a Ph.D. toxicologist. My exact expertise in toxicology is something called immunotoxicology. So I study the way different chemicals that you're exposed to and what you eat, drink, touch, breathe, how they can change the way your immune system works. But before I did that, I have a bachelor's in biotechnology from Purdue University. And then after grad school, I actually didn't immediately pursue a career in toxicology. I had a brief foray into pediatric cancer research.
Oh, wow.
So I worked at a health system in West Michigan, and we were doing a lot of the preclinical work for clinical trial development for pediatric solid tumors, from neuroblastoma to DIPG and everything in between. Eventually got recruited to Michigan State University, which is where I am now. And I work in their Center for Research on Ingredient Safety. So we are what we call public-private partnership. We work with all sectors. With public sector, with corporations, with regulators, academics, to really, in a holistic way, tackle the questions around chemical ingredient and contaminant safety in everyday consumer goods and products. So whether it's personal care products or food or beverage or just household products. And that's where I am now. And it's a really interesting mix of doing academic research. I have my own laboratory. In addition to also doing educating, I teach undergraduates here at Michigan State.
Nice.
And then one thing that I wasn't as prepared for, but I quite enjoy, is the science communication aspect. So we do a lot of communicating with the public through our blogs and through podcasts like this and other avenues to try to get information out that is reliable and accurately reflects the state of the science, because frankly, that is rather lacking in a lot of spheres.
Wow. Well, you guys have more connections because of the whole cancer thing too. And I think, Erin, you could touch on that.
Yeah. I think so. It's so funny. So the way that I met Dr. Joe is because of Unbiased. So I got onboarded to help collaborate with some of their stuff because I'm on the physician end of the toxicology side, right? So I deal with occupational medicine and environmental medicine. And so I actually treat patients that might be exposed to bad things, bad toxins, especially in the workplace. And so I got introduced to Dr. Joe just through Unbiased, and I was so impressed with him. And we started having a conversation. I'm like, well, what's your background? And there are so many parallels because I had cancer as a kid, and I actually did cancer research myself. And I did more imaging research, nuclear medicine stuff. But it was heartbreaking, and so I couldn't be an oncologist. And then you mentioned that you had done pediatric oncology research as well. And then my favorite part, though, is that your daughter is named Erin, and it is spelled the exact same way as my name. And
Yep.
So I was like, oh, I feel like we were supposed to meet.
Yeah.
It was just meant to be.
Well, even like So like my spouse is a math teacher, and I found out that you used to be a math teacher. Is that correct?
Science
Or
teacher, but
science
still,
teacher?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
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 So it's just
There are a
a
lot of
a
parallels
lot
there.
of commonality.
Yes.
Yes, yes, and we have very similar fields. We've collaborated on a couple posts now with Unbiased, and I've been able to kind of observe your keen eye, and you're very meticulous in what you put out. And I so much appreciate that you've come on this podcast to talk to people about something that I feel like has become more. I guess in social media, more prevalent in social media, and the misinformation around toxicology or toxins or people supposedly being poisoned or being exposed to things that they're very concerned about. I think this is important communication to the public. And I know that our audience, they are, health minded people. And so I thought it would behoove us to have you on so that you can talk about your background and talk about yeah, toxicology. I
Yeah.
want to know like how,
Before you get
yeah,
into that though, because it is very, very relevant, especially with the population that we deal with on balanced bodies, because they are very health-centric people.
Yeah,
But there's a predatory aspect out there where you have a lot of people trying to say, like, because of certain exposures, you're dealing with this, so you have to work with me in order
yeah,
to help you out there, or you have to use my coupon code to buy these supplements that will help you with these toxins
the
that you're,
detox.
yeah,
yeah.
the detox supplements that you have to deal with because you're exposed to these supplements every day. So your fields in particular with like cosmetics being put onto the body, like this is gonna be great because it's gonna shine a light that needs to be basically illuminated to show people, hey, like you're okay, or you know what, these ones you really have to worry about. These ones you're fine. Like whatever people are
Sure.
pushing out there, you don't have to. So you were going to ask him how he even got into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Why don't you
Yeah, yeah.
tell us how you even got into it?
Tell us what interested you in
Yeah.
this field. It's a rare field.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And the simple answer is I wasn't planning on this. I didn't go looking for a career in toxicology. So if I take a step back, when I was an undergrad, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 adenocarcinoma of the lung.
Oh, wow.
And 10 months later, I would say goodbye to my dad.
I'm
Oh,
Uh,
sorry.
so, here I am, a 21-year-old biotech major trying to figure out what I want to do. But also at the same time, it's what, 2008, job market's not phenomenal. And so uh, I ended up working at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago for a year, but that really wasn't for me. And I was decided I wanted to go back to school to pursue a PhD in cell biology and become a cancer researcher. Well, when you enter most, if not all, PhD programs, you have rotations. So you essentially do a trial run in a few different laboratories to see if it's a good fit for you and for the PhD that's running the lab. And they're like, I don't know, 8 to 10 weeks each. And I always found the immune system fascinating. And when you first show up on campus, essentially there is a group of professors that are looking for students in their lab that give more or less like a 10-minute elevator speech on like what the research in their lab looks like. And there was a new faculty member. Her name's Dr. Cheryl Rockwell, and she gave a great presentation looking at a transcription factor, which is just a protein that turns genes on and off. And how it changes the way the immune system works. And that this transcription factor, NRF2, NRF2, can be turned on and on by cell stresses such as toxins and toxicants. So one of the main ones we use is actually a food preservative called TBHQ or tert-butyl hydroquinone. And I wasn't thinking about toxicology, but I thought, well, I'll burn one of my three rotations on this. This sounds interesting, and then I never left.
yeah.
Uh,
Cool.
and I actually after that, that's why I made the jump into pediatric cancers, because I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to stick with my original plan. And similar to you, Aaron, I couldn't do it.
Yes, it's too sad.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a blessing and a curse to see real world impact in your work,
Mhm.
uh, but also seeing the real world pain and suffering that requires your work.
Yes.
And I just was couldn't see my kids in the face of those other kids, and I just couldn't do it. It's not for everybody, and knowing your limits is important.
Mhm.
And so I actually did my PhD at Michigan State, and so I was contacted by faculty here, and they asked if I would consider coming back to run the science portion of what we would call CRIS, which is the Center for Research on Ingredient Safety, and that was 4.5 years ago. I really enjoy it. It still is an opportunity to have a direct impact on public health, um, but without the emotional expense of the other.
Yes, I think, and not only that, it's a very applicable, right, to the general population. It's, I feel
Yeah,
like, especially now. That being said, let's get into it. Like,
sure.
Yeah.
what do you see on your end that people most worry about as far as
Yeah.
like toxins go? Because I know that you've been a science communicator, you're a professor, you've done research in this area. So what do you see that people complain about the most?
Um, it depends on the news cycle.
Yeah.
Uh,
Agreed.
I mean, there are some things that are evergreen, right? So, like, um, uh, PFAS is one that, but even what is that is a different discussion. I mean, we're talking 15,000 different chemicals or
Right.
more, and all being treated or discussed as if it's one thing.
Mhm.
Same thing with microplastics and nanoplastics are pretty constant, but there's more we don't know than we do know about that. And so it really does kind of depend on the current climate. With the current climate in the U.S. right now on what certain things are being held up or demonized, based on the current administration, that also comes into play. And so there's really not a single answer, because each each group that I'm talking to might have a different concern. Might be pesticide residues.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It might be the question of conventionally versus organically grown produce. And so one thing that, and actually I like this, and maybe I'm glutton for punishment, but uh, I like that it's a little bit different every day.
Yeah.
And so,
Yes.
like, in fact, in a little bit, I have a different phone call with just a local news station talking about food additives.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, what that even means, because that could be any number of things. But, um, and I've talked to people about microplastics or about BPA,
Mhm.
or, fill in the blank. And so it requires you to be nimble, and requires you to distill a lot of information quickly. But like I said, I'm a bit of a glutton there for punishment, so I enjoy it. So I don't have any one compound,
Yeah.
but it's more what I see is people just want to make sure that themselves and their loved ones are safe,
Yeah.
and that is uh, in an environment where mis and dis and malinformation is so rampant, and skepticism is so high, uh, they question everything. And so because of that, I can't give you one easy
I
answer.
love that answer. I think that's the reality, right? Like, and you're absolutely correct. Like when patients come to me, it's like, for example, a lot of our patients are firefighters, and we do PFAS blood draws. And,
Yeah.
a very common conversation is right now we don't know enough, right? To actually
Yeah.
tell you what a good level is, what a bad level is, because there's different levels of exposure. Firefighters are thought to be more exposed because it's in the firefighting foam, that sort of thing. And
Yep.
so, there's very much an interplay of the science and then of the patient centered and people centered care. And so I think I've seen so many things recently though where I'm like, well, I never thought I'd use my background like this, and where people are like, am I getting poisoned by the clothes I'm wearing,
Yeah.
or am I being exposed to so many microplastics that it's going to affect my arteries or my cognition? Is it getting into,
Yeah.
is it passing the blood brain barrier?
Well,
It's crazy.
we just had a real life example, me and her. So she was going to heat up the baby's
Yeah.
the baby's milk in it
Yeah.
was regular organic milk, but it was in a bottle.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's not put that in the microwave. And she's like, there's no BPA in it. And I was like, well, let's just be safe. Let's throw it in the glass one and microwave that just in case. And it's funny because like I'll take my prepped food and I'll heat it up in a plastic microwave and not even have a thought. But when
Yeah.
it comes to my 17-month-old daughter, I'm like, wait, glass just in case. Like, I don't know, but let's just do just in case. She's like, all right. So that
Yeah.
was it.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I think people are more skeptical, right?
Mhm.
I'm
Because
drinking from a plastic water bottle right now.
So am I. I mean,
so I think it's interesting because right now, and you're absolutely correct with the political climate, and I think after COVID, there's a lot of distrust, I think, in the medical field as well, and in science, unfortunately, and it's almost more imperative for scientists to be involved in this kind of communication, right? I
It's
think
just
there's so
so
much fear
it's just
mongering
so
out there.
hard because
Yeah,
people, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
yeah,
it's like because I get these questions, and these are a lot of what my posts are about. It's just every day people have these beliefs, and no matter
yeah.
what science you give them, they won't believe it because they think there's some conspiracy out there, like, oh, it's the government, they're just trying to get us, or big pharma is out to hurt us, and
Yeah.
it's no, no, they're not, man.
yeah.
They're out to try to make life safer, and
Yes.
it would be in your best interest to actually listen to the scientists. Well, they're getting paid. Everyone's getting paid. That's their
But
job to
also,
do the
I'd like
job
some of that
correctly.
paid shill money. I don't
I
know.
know,
Yeah.
I know. Like, where's that pharma money
Yeah.
that they
Where's that check for
giving?
writing prescriptions? Where's
Yeah,
that come
right.
in?
Where's that check for vaccines? I
Yeah.
But
still
it's
need
it's it's insane because like I'm glad everyone is more aware of like what they're putting in their body. I am
Yeah.
happy about that because it's what I do with nutrition for my clients. But it's like there's stepping over dollars to pick up pennies when it comes to certain things like this because they're
Hmm.
not even worried about like the types of food they're eating, but they're afraid of putting
yeah.
deodorant on that might have aluminum in it or something like that. So can you touch on, let's just say, these more broader, very very apparent concerns that are coming
Yeah.
from the general population, like sunscreen, which I could actually give you a prime example of, or deodorant, or the BPA and plastics, like
Yeah.
just generalize if you can.
So
'Cause we could be here forever.
I would say this is all of those touch on very different things too. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
um, so whenever I'm talking to somebody, I always try to approach it from a point of empathy
Mhm.
because I spent way too long in school trying to learn this stuff. I mean, I was in school till I was 30. So,
Yeah.
I
uh,
think I mean, I was 29 when I was done with
yeah.
residency, so and I started young too.
And so it's like, I don't, it's would be unfair of me as an expert in the field to assume that someone else should know the same information that I do.
Mhm.
And therefore, it would also be unfair of me to approach it from anything other than a point of understanding of like these things sound scary. When you are dealing with chemicals that frequently, when they're being framed in discussion, are followed with the term poisoning or toxicity or disruption, it is understandable why an average person would be scared by that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I always try to first frame it from a point of essentially, I hear you, I get why you feel this way. And then try to provide as much nuance as I can, because almost every one of these questions has an infinite amount of nuance around it.
Mhm.
And so if the person isn't going to accept the information, then sometimes you have to just say thank you for your time. But let's say BPA, for instance. BPA is a tough one, because there is legitimate discourse occurring on the safety of BPA. There's a lot of evidence showing that BPA can interact with the estrogen receptor, which is why it mimics estrogen, but it does it at 1/10,000th of the ability of your body's own estrogen that it's producing. So you would have to have 10,000 times more BPA in your body than natural estrogen for it to be able to compete. There's some data out there that show that perhaps low dose exposures might be important.
Mhm.
And so trying to educate people to say, hey, the science is very unsettled here. I'm not saying that there's nothing to be concerned about, but saying there's definitely something to be concerned about is also a leap.
Yeah.
And so
Great way to put it.
that is, trying to provide that nuance is very difficult, because people want clean answers. They think it's a dichotomous, is it safe, is it not?
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
Depends. Yeah.
it always depends, right?
Yeah.
So what dose, what route, what frequency, what are potential polymorphisms that you might have that make you predisposed? What is your diet currently? So are you providing your body with the ability to protect itself through your own nutrition? Here at Chris, we call that protective nutrition. And so all of these
We're gonna
things.
use that. I'm stealing that. I'm stealing it. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. We have a whole blog on it. You can look it up.
Yeah.
We use iron consumption as an example, because proper iron consumption can actually outcompete just low level lead exposure in your diet. So heavy metals are natural around us, right? So no matter if you like it, love it. And so whether or not you like it or not, you're going to be eating heavy metals, because we live on an earth that has heavy metals.
Yeah.
But proper nutrition can make sure that the negative heavy metals exit the body and you can take up the good ones.
Mhm.
But anyways,
so you're not saying use chelation or anything, right?
oh dear God, no.
Thank God. Thank God.
It kills. People that are saying that don't know what chelation therapy is, and how nobody who needs chelation therapy wants chelation therapy.
Yeah, so aggressive.
Yeah, and you are alive because of heavy metals.
Exactly. There's
essential heavy metals keep you alive.
Yes.
Well,
so
what I find is hilarious is like the chelation tests that they put out there are basically a scam, because they're going to pee it out because they're pulling more in there. So they're like, oh, well, now you're peeing out a lot because you have a toxic level. And it's like, no, because you're dragging it out, which is why I'm peeing it out.
Yeah.
Good scam. It's a good scam.
It's a lack of understanding of how biology works.
Yeah.
And then that gets preyed upon by people with ulterior motive.
Absolutely.
That's the predatory aspect I was alluding to earlier. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I always tell people, like, if somebody's trying to get you to click an affiliate link, or they're presenting you with this massive supposed problem, but they have the cure for it, just 10 easy payments of $9.99, then I wish that was met with the same amount of skepticism as me saying, like, hey, the paper that said you have a plastic spoon's worth of microplastics in your brain had some pretty major issues, and the field now doesn't think that that's accurate, that they were just measuring fat. But that gets painted as like, well, you're full of it.
You're getting poisoned.
Yeah. And it's like, well, why am I getting met with this skepticism when I'm trying to help you, but you're going to click the affiliate link and have a monthly subscription?
Yes, yes. Well, you had a peptide thing
Oh
recently.
yeah. I just put on. So listen to this. So I'm not a fan of the fitness peptides, like the peptides that are
Neither am
legitimate, the
I.
GLPs, cool, insulin, great,
The
growth
ones that have
hormone.
been tested on
Yes,
humans.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. But the fitness peptides, I'm not a fan of. Right? I'm
Yeah.
just they're being pushed. They're being you have coaches putting them like having their clients go through them, basically running experiments on their clients, and it's like to
It's
me that's it
unethical.
goes against everything I believe in. So I
Yeah.
did this thing yesterday where like I took a post gym photo and I was like, click a link for my peptide stack,
Or
right?
it was peptide protocol.
My peptide protocol. Yeah, yeah.
Of course.
So click the link for my peptide protocol, and the link went to a YouTube video that just said you're an idiot. Like that's it. Right? But that story, that link. So I listen. I put so many links on my stories for like my book, free
Yeah.
chapters, free content, like valuable info, resources, everything. It had the most clicks that I've ever had on a story ever, and it was because it said peptide protocol,
Yeah.
and it was hilarious. I'm like,
Well,
I can't believe it's
in my
such an obsession.
experience,
Obsession.
specifically with peptides, the average person doesn't know what a peptide is.
No,
Yeah, it's
Like,
true.
yeah,
like,
It's a
like,
very general term.
yeah. And the oh well, they're not approved because big pharma can't make money. It's like, yes, they can. They make
yeah.
money on peptides all the dang time. Like it's a
Yes.
multi-billion-dollar industry.
It would
GLP.
make they would make
Yeah.
more if this stuff was actually legitimate because you have
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
peptides to be given out.
And
Yeah.
and I mean this is my issue with peptides. And I mean I would even extend this into at large the supplement space.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think if you are going to make health claims, you should have to prove safety and efficacy. Uh, and the fact that people are trying to get around the question of both of those, really, both
Yeah.
safety and efficacy with peptides,
Mhm.
with well, the most recent panel, for instance, was that last week? Time's a flat
Yeah, it
circle.
was. I know. I think it was a couple weeks ago. We had Lee on our podcast as
Oh,
well.
mhm.
She's amazing. We just love
Yeah.
her. But yeah, I think it was maybe a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But essentially, they're trying to circumvent the need for full FDA approval,
Yeah.
where you would actually have to show scientifically safety and efficacy, because most of these peptides have little to no human data at all.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And like, so
Scary.
we don't know dose, we don't know potential toxicities, and especially once you start getting into like tens of thousands or millions of people taking these things, now you also have well, I'm sure Aaron, you know quite well, but idiosyncratic events where essentially people are weird. There's going to be a
Oh, yeah.
random person. It might be 1 in a million, might be 1 in 10 million that have a terrible reaction to something.
Mhm.
I saw a post the other day. Somebody had an anaphylactic reaction to and they posted the video of like them having the anaphylactic reaction. And I'm like, is that even from the peptide? We don't even know what's in the vial, right?
Yeah,
So who knows like what exactly
Cause that.
that caused the anaphylaxis, right? But it was pretty serious. Like this person went to the ER, um,
goodness.
and had to call 911, and it was the whole deal. Like this is scary stuff that people are using their
Exactly.
bodies to experiment on.
Exactly. Well, and even when
But
I
God
see
forbid they
people,
take a vaccine though.
oh goodness. Yeah. Yeah. You don't
We're
want
going
any
off
of
on
that
tangents
poison
now.
in you, right?
Anyway, sorry, we digress.
Uh, uh, but even like, because I'll hear people say, well, it's a human based peptide. It's like, okay, but we're not harvesting that from people. We know the amino acid sequence, so we can make usually a microorganism, a bacteria, a yeast, what have you,
Mhm.
Right.
make that peptide. But they also make changes to the outside of the glycosylations, these which are sugars that get added to the outside of these proteins, and those can be very reactive for the immune system.
Yeah.
There's actually different receptors that the immune system has specifically to detect those sugars that are put on by microorganisms, because they're trying to keep you safe from infection, right? So there's a huge part of the formulation process is understanding what those different changes look like and if they're safe. And that's just really one aspect of safety. I mean, it's just the whole thing is wild.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree. Totally. And speaking, I mean, I think this gets into the nuance of science communication a little bit. And if we go back to like even exposures and stuff like that, how do you communicate risk or explain risk to
Mhm.
people? Because I know this has come up, in some of our back conversations,
Yeah.
when we've collaborated on posts, and hazard and risk are totally different. So can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. And this is one that's a perpetual thorn in my side, to be quite honest. And part of it is because different regulatory agencies globally approach this question differently. Some are much more hazard focused, and some are much more risk focused. So when I discuss this with people, I first point out that everything is a chemical. Uh, because you'll get a lot of like, oh well, clean this, chemical free this, and it's like, all right, well, the air you're breathing is a chemical, the
You are
furniture you're
chemical.
touching is a
The
chemical,
food you
you are
eat.
made of
Yes.
chemicals.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just If we can't agree on that reality, we can't have a discussion.
No.
Uh, but then I followed up with the adage in toxicology of the dose makes the poison. So every chemical, I don't care if it's arsenic, I don't care if it is oxygen, has a safe and a toxic dose. And those doses are different chemical to chemical, but they definitely exist.
Mhm.
Um, and so I try to point out that it's important in toxicology to know the bad things that a chemical has the potential to cause scientifically. So not every chemical can cause DNA damage, for instance, and not every chemical can cause kidney damage. But it's important to know the ones that can do those things.
Mhm.
And finding out the dose or the amount that you're necessary to be exposed to cause that negative outcome, or referred to as an adverse outcome. And then once we find that, that's our hazard. That's the bad thing that theoretically can occur at some exposure level, even if that exposure level is, you know, 10 million times higher than you could ever feasibly be exposed to. That's still the hazard,
Yep.
the potential negative thing. Now, risk, we ask a follow-up question of, great, we know the negative outcome that could feasibly maybe happen. Now we ask the question of what dose is necessary. And so we can then work backwards and say, well, what's the probability of that negative outcome occurring given a certain exposure or a certain dose? And so if we can make sure our exposures are low enough, you can make sure our risk, or the probability of that negative thing occurring, is low, as close to zero as we can get. I liken it a lot of times to swimming in the ocean. Swimming in the ocean has inherent hazards. You could be stung by a jellyfish. You could be bitten by a shark. So if you are going to expose yourself to the ocean, there are negative things that can occur, but there are things that we can do to make sure that we stay safe too. And that is making sure that our exposure is such that those negative outcomes are less likely. And so our exposure makes sure that our risk is as low as possible.
So the risk is the probability that the hazard will cause harm.
Correct. So you can think of it as like exposure times hazard equals risk.
Mhm.
So you can make sure if your exposure is low enough, you can have something that, take lead, for instance. Uh, we all in our diet have very, very low exposure to lead.
Yeah.
Most of us are not lead poisoned. And that's because we have taken steps to make sure that our exposure is so low that the negative outcomes, those adverse outcomes, don't occur. The
Catalytic
hazard
converters.
is never
Yeah.
actualized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
So,
it's interesting because even physiology plays into that, right? So a pediatric patient will absorb more lead than, for example, an adult. But they metabolize it different. And so again, like there's so much nuance to this field, and I think it's very important, like on the surface level, to understand hazard, risk. Um,
And the dose response.
yeah,
yeah.
That
yeah,
dose response
Well,
relationship is very
and
important.
Yes.
Your point about peds is a great one. And because whenever I start talking about thresholds, whether it's allowable daily intakes or whether it's the reference dose or essentially looking at, how much could you be exposed to every day for a lifetime and still be okay?
Right.
One of the main things I get asked is, well, this doesn't take into account kids. Kids aren't just little adults. And the answer to that is that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Kids are not just little adults,
Mhm.
but we also bake safety into those thresholds.
Right.
So, step one, what's the hazard? What's the level necessary to achieve that? Then we figure out what are the we refer to them as NOELs and LOELs, the
Mhm.
no observable adverse effect level and the lowest observable adverse effect level. Uh, but essentially, we're saying where what is the dose where we no longer see negative things occurring?
Right.
And we say, but we don't know everything. There are sensitive populations. There's sometimes there's some data that's missing. Sometimes we have to extrapolate from animals to people, which isn't a perfect science. And so for each one of those, we say, okay, well, we'll lower the threshold by tenfold. So it's if you had, let's say they said 100 milligrams per kilogram of this chemical is the safe dose. And then they have what we refer to as uncertainty factors. We say, okay, well, what about sensitive populations? Okay, lower it by 10. So we're at 10 mgs per kg.
Mhm.
What about missing data? Lower it by 10 again. Now we're at 1 mg per kg. And, well, what about extrapolation from animals? Lower it by 10 again.
Mhm.
And so when we actually set the threshold, we have baked in 100,000 times more safety than the data itself even called for to try to account for even the most sensitive among us.
Yeah, I think that's so important for people to hear because I think, especially in the United States, I think we do a pretty good job of trying to protect the general population. I
Yeah.
know, sometimes like the complaint is like some of these regulations haven't been revisited. It's because they're at a standard that is low and that is safe for the population. And
Yes.
so, occasionally, you'll get these like crazy stories. I think there was one recently from the consumer product that there was like increased lead levels in some of the whey protein. I don't know if you saw this.
Fuel. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Fuel. Yeah.
The whey protein supplements. And what they found is, and as you alluded to previously, some states or even countries have different standards. I think they were going by the California standards, which tend to be
Almost
a little
always.
they're way more stringent in California. Um, but but in general, it was still safe for the general
Yeah.
population, and it was just kind of an outrageous headline, and we see that a lot. And I think what I want people to understand about this part of science, and when they're looking at toxicology or and how that interfaces with them, is how much goes into it, how much nuance there is, and how really all the scientists are on the part of like we do want to protect the general population, like that is what we want to do. And
Yeah.
so when we're looking at these different levels, um, it is a multidisciplinary team usually that's looking at this, scientists with
Absolutely.
years and years of experience, looking at different levels to make sure that the population does stay safe. And in general, I feel like we do accomplish that for the most part.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that people need to know. They really, the fear mongering out there is just that. It's fear mongering.
I completely agree. I think in a lot of senses, and honestly, this is true for even like vaccines. Um, Toxicology is a victim of its own success.
Yeah.
Uh, and you know, not that long ago, we had some pretty major issues with heavy metal contamination and things, or whether it's mycotoxins in grain, or things like pyrrolizidine alkaloids in other food products, and they were causing legitimate real world damage to people. And through a very concerted effort globally, not just here in the U.S., uh, toxicologists learned how to detect these chemicals, learn their effects, and how to make sure that that exposure is minimized to a point where we can have a safe food supply and we can have safe products in our home. And that's not to say that issues never arise,
Right.
because they do. Um, and it's not to say we can't do better on certain things, because we can. But to pretend as though there's large scale poisonings occurring is also not fair.
Yeah, I
Agree.
completely
Agree 100%.
Yeah.
So let's try to bring this to where like our listeners can relate to this, because there's a lot of
Sure.
science talk going on here. So what are some certain products that people use every day that raise the most questions that maybe they don't have to really be that concerned with, just to kind of bring it into where it's like, oh, well, I know this, that, and the other thing are can be okay for me, so I should use them or whatever.
Yeah. So a short list. I think that right now there's a lot of undue concern on um, microplastic exposure in food.
Okay.
First off, food is not, or really food or beverage, not your primary route of exposure for microplastics. Not, and it's certainly not through your skin. I've seen also people saying,
yeah.
well,
That's interesting.
whatever clothing material on your skin, your skin acts as a barrier. That's,
Yeah.
but it's air. And so you could put everything in glass containers. But we live in
Stop
a
breathing.
world. What's that?
Stop breathing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
we live in a world where there's synthetic fibers everywhere. Tires are being worn down on the road. We have in my office, I'm sure that the carpet in here is some sort of plastic fiber. The clothing we wear, and so worrying about what is the potential exposure through the food I'm eating is worrying about the tip of an iceberg.
Mhm.
And so, and if you want to use all metal or glass containers, more power to you. That's It's not as though that's a bad choice,
Yeah.
but worrying to the point of stress is arguably more detrimental to you than the minimal exposure you're getting through your food comparatively.
Yeah.
So that would be one. Another really big one is uh, pesticides, whether it is glyphosate or whether it is whatever methyl ethyl bad stuff. Um, People are very concerned about pesticides, and I understand why, because we're using chemicals to kill something, whether it is an insect or whether it is a weed or whether it is a fungus. It is a chemical inherently designed to kill something.
Mhm.
And so it has a very negative connotation, justifiably so. But understanding that, one, if we want to feed a world of 7-8 billion people, we have to have efficient ways to grow food,
Mhm.
which means that we have to use pesticides. And now farmers are using them as sparingly as possible to make sure they get the yields they need. One, they wouldn't spend money on something they don't need, but two, it's a necessary evil. But we do have regulated limits in place to make sure that you and your loved ones are safe. And that I don't care if you're buying organic or conventionally grown, pesticides are being used.
Yeah.
It's just one is human derived chemicals and one is naturally derived chemicals. But this notion that natural is somehow inherently more safe is nonsense. I mean, ricin is safe. Uh, uh, Rattlesnake venom is safe. I mean, safe, natural, not
Yeah.
safe.
Natural,
Yeah.
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 Um,
I'm like, ricin is very
Ricin
detrimental.
is incredibly not safe.
We got
Famously
it,
not
but natural.
safe.
Yeah, yeah.
But or like botulism toxin
Yeah.
is natural.
Yep.
Um, and so there's this notion that, one, these trace amounts of pesticide on our food products are going to hurt someone, which frankly the evidence just doesn't support. And then secondarily, I can avoid pesticide exposure if I just buy organic, which also
Not
Yeah.
true.
is not accurate.
There's approved pesticides for organic, but it's still pesticides.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, and even some of those pesticides, I think even the most like stringent, I'll only use natural supporters would consider non-naturally sourced because they're
Yeah.
made from microorganisms that we've genetically engineered to make them, or we have to extract them by means that they would see as inherently synthetic. And so those two for sure, I think, would be top of mind for at least right now, and PFAS would be another one.
Which you can't avoid.
Where what's that?
You're not gonna avoid them.
No, not at all. Well, and I always point out to people that obviously, so there's like 15,000 different chemicals in this huge umbrella. Um, the vast majority of the research has been done on like two of them.
Yeah. I
Uh,
was gonna say there's like a very small
yeah,
amount of those
yeah,
that
it's
we've
like
actually looked at.
exactly, yeah, it's what PFOA and PFOS,
Yep.
uh, and those are two chemicals that aren't used anymore. That if you look in the environment and you look in human blood, have over the last 2 decades decreased by like 70 to 85%. And so, not saying there's no issues anywhere,
Yeah.
but when all of the conclusions are being drawn from just a handful of the 15,000, and most of it at exposures hundreds or thousands or sometimes hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
times higher than people are exposed,
Mhm.
it's and to your point, it's you're not going to avoid them.
Yeah.
Uh, it's an area where people are being told they can optimize, or being told they can avoid, or they are being told they can be cleansed when it just can't happen. And so, personally, I'm not going to tell somebody how they should or shouldn't live their life. I only have so much emotional energy and currency, and I'm not spending it there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah.
will say, touching on that, so like I do, like a lot of clients say, hey, should I buy organic
mhm.
food? And I'm like, if you have the money for it and it makes you feel better, fine, but you don't have to, right? Like
Yeah,
I'm not gonna tell you you can't buy organic food. I'm gonna say it's gonna be more expensive for really no benefit.
yeah.
So if you want to, if it makes you feel better, fine, by all means, go ahead and do so. But other than that, you don't have to buy organic food.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The data is pretty clear that organic versus conventional, there is no edge one way or the other.
Mhm.
Um, there are some like minor differences on the fringes, but nothing that would equate to like a meaningful health advantage for either group.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
so if somebody, like you said, has the resources and wants to do that, and it reduces the stress in their life, go ahead.
Yeah,
But
it's sort of like it's like choose
let's
your
not
own.
vilify
Yeah,
conventionals, and let's just make sure we're eating fruits and vegetables.
that's
Exactly.
that's
Yeah, yeah. Let's get with the basics first.
it's another way to kind of navigate around eating fruits and vegetables.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what, like it's like 9% or something like that of adults in the US get appropriate
It's
fruit and
bad.
vegetable
It's
consumption.
really bad.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so it's, what's actually bad for health? Not having enough fiber, not
Yep.
Yes.
having the appropriate vitamins. You know, rickets, not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yes, make
yeah,
sure that you have the basics down, right? I think
yeah,
again, it's like people are worrying about these big things or sorry, they're worrying about these little
Yeah.
details when they should be worried about the big picture
It was
here.
like it's like so I've done a talk I've done seminars at places and a lot of things and I like debunk myths. And
yeah.
one of the big myths that I always love talking about because it resonates with people is like people avoiding fruit because there's sugar in fruit. And I'm like, you're avoiding it because of one con. If you want to call it a con, call it a con. But then here are all the pros. And like I list them out and I'm like, are you really going to avoid eating fruit because it has fructose in it? Like, and it's natural sugar. Like you're really going to avoid it. But it's funny because like she said, like they'll focus on that one little detail to kind of just villainize it.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
yeah.
I had somebody in my DMs on Instagram, it would have been last week, um, send me a content about sugar feeding cancer.
Oh,
mm,
And you know, legitimately worried about their children.
Yeah.
And so I tried to tell them that every cell in your body uses sugar
Right.
as fuel.
Yeah.
And if you were to completely deprive yourself of sugar, it would just break down other macromolecules to make sugar molecules.
Yeah.
to
You're
make
like, you need to live still. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like, hey, let's, we could talk about gluconeogenesis and everything else, but whether you're getting sugar from fruit or if your body is breaking down adipose tissue and to make ATP or the energy, uh, it doesn't care because it's all chemistry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all, at the end of the day, it's all chemicals. We are all chemicals.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. One last question, since you're, what is one thing you wish more people knew about toxicology?
I wish more people knew and understood that we're here to help. Um, and and that the statement of scientists don't want you to know immediately is wrong.
Oh, yeah, totally true. Like we have some secret to keep. I'm like,
Yeah,
we're
it's
like
like
nerds. We want to
yeah,
talk about our field of study that's weird.
yeah. I mean, if you get us talking, we won't shut up about the nerdy stuff. Like we're insufferable in that regard.
Yes.
There's a lot of well, actually, when you're in discussions with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then understand that the dose makes the poison. So understand that even scary sounding chemicals have exposure levels that are not scary.
Hmm.
That detection doesn't mean harm, presence doesn't mean danger. And because if I could get just that little bit of nuance to people, uh, I think it would be very helpful when they start seeing things come out saying like, hey, there's, you know, zero point 0.2 parts per billion of glyphosate in these Girl Scout cookies, or uh, or hey, there's 5 parts per trillion of this this contaminant in the drinking water, and it's like, okay, well, those are important things to know, but let's talk about the dose necessary to be harmful. And what do you know? You are a million times below it.
Yeah.
And I think that has the potential to alleviate a lot of concern for the average consumer, because ultimately we all just want ourselves, our loved ones, our kids to be able to grow up in a world where we're not always waiting for the other foot to fall in terms of chemical risk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have to agree with that like strongly because even with aspartame, right? Like like yeah, it scared everybody that it's a carcinogen, causes cancer until you looked at what the dose was given to the mice and how it was doses that humans can't even consume. And of
Yeah.
course that's going to cause harm, but it also shed a light to where people saw that and they're like, "Oh, so it's okay." And it's like, "Yes." But
Mhm.
then you have the religion believers that are just like, no, it's a cancer, it's a carcinogen. There's no way I'm putting that on my body. And it's like, all right, then you won't ever have Diet Coke or Powerade Zero. So
Mhm.
good for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
agree
I'm
with that.
sorry you've eliminated some happiness from your life. Um,
Yeah.
Exactly.
a great example of that is even red number 3 that got
Oh,
Delaneyed
Oh,
jeez.
yeah.
earlier
Yeah.
this
That
year,
was
where it's
crazy.
like, yeah, so you have one rat study where like 5% of their diet over 2 years every day was red dye number 3. And through a pathway that doesn't even exist in people,
No.
they developed cancer. But by the letter of the law, it had to be removed. But now, well, it's a carcinogen. It's like, no, it's
Yeah.
not. It
Yeah.
just it was taken out by poor legislation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like the Fruit Loops that you eat, whether it has the red dye 3 in it or not, still ain't going to be good for your health.
It's not
Oh,
going to help your heart health.
Yeah.
absolutely. I talk about this all the time around the ultra processed food front, and really, and I'm sorry if we're going over here because I
No,
could
this
talk
was awesome.
Yeah.
I
Thank
could talk forever about all this
you.
stuff.
We're going to have to do a part 2, definitely.
Yeah, but it's nutrition and toxicology are Venn diagrams that
Mhm.
overlap.
Yep.
And it is not necessarily the ingredients themselves in ultra processed foods that I think are necessarily unsafe. Uh, we're very good at actually testing chemicals, especially food chemicals, for safety.
Mhm.
But food is difficult because if you increase certain ingredients, because if you think of it as a pie chart, the pie chart is 100%, and if you start taking up larger percentage of the pie for certain ingredients, you're decreasing it in other ingredients,
Yeah.
and that usually comes at the expense of nutrition.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so to make sure things are very shelf stable and make sure they are very reproducible and make sure that they are palatable for certain audiences, more and more of that pie is taken up by things that are non-nutritious. And so what I personally, as a toxicologist, think is happening isn't that there might be some nefarious chemical in the food that's causing harm, but what's causing harm is the lack of consumption of nutrient dense food.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so now you're seeing, almost nobody gets enough fiber in their diet. And with fiber, you have more blood glucose fluctuations. You have higher risk for colorectal cancer. You have uh, a higher risk of heart disease. And so it's not necessarily that the toxicologists were wrong in their assessment of what's safe, but that in formulating some of these products, it made it so the average diet is no longer nutritious.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. So it's like bringing in a psychological component where you have these highly palatable foods doing some stuff to your brain when you eat them, which makes you want to veer towards that than let's just say a cup of broccoli, right?
Yeah,
It's a lot easier to eat, a bowl of Fruit Loop cereal than it is to sit down and eat a bowl of broccoli. So
absolutely. And you know, part of it is also the like it's just so complex because like socioeconomics comes in,
Yep.
yes.
food deserts and food availability comes in,
Yep.
Mhm.
and so whenever somebody points to an incredibly complex, difficult question and problem and says, "I have this easy answer. All you have to do is
Yeah.
fill in the blank."
Yeah.
Almost invariably, the answer is you're full of it. That's
Yeah.
not,
That's a
that's,
red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And actually, my coworker, our director of science communication here, Chris, she and I just recently wrote a book. Uh,
Oh, congrats. That's
Yeah.
oh,
Plug
awesome.
it.
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, what's
Plug
the
the
book?
book. Go ahead.
Well, it's with the editor right now, so it's not in print yet. But essentially, what we're looking at is the intersection of toxicology, specifically around ingredient safety and social media.
Okay.
And using it more or less as a guide to understand how your feed is curated for you, and sometimes it's being curated to have you not understand what's actually occurring.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
by
Yeah.
having a 30,000 foot view of toxicology and just understanding how the algorithms work, you can begin to curate your own content for you instead of having it curated without you knowing.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it really does come back to uh, pointing out that there's everything's complex.
Mhm.
Nothing is simple. It's always, it depends. It's always shades of gray and nuance and situational. And so there are instances where sometimes the less nutritive option is the only option for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only way to get around that is changing and pulling different levers societally,
Yeah.
uh, uh, and not just pointing out that, hey, you're poisoning people. And it's like, okay, well, they may not have the means or the availability or the understanding, and so you have to look at these issues holistically, not as one-off singular problems because they're all interconnected.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Absolutely.
send you that post that I did about. So I put out a hypothetical, and we won't talk about because it'll take too long. But I put out a
Oh, yeah.
hypothetical where I was like, if you could have lab grown food and it reduces the insecurity, the food insecurity of people,
Mhm.
would you push for that? Would you agree that that would be a good thing? And everyone was like, no, it's in the lab, it's not real. They're trying to hurt us. And I'm like, so you would rather have people not have food security and have access to food because you think they're going to get hurt by lab grown meat or something. And
Yeah,
it's to see the dichotomy between some people with, no, it's terrible, to no, please help out people. Like, it's crazy because it's so divided. It's so
yeah.
divided. I
And
got to
what a
send you that.
privileged place to be, right? To say, well, no, 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 no. I am
That's
fine.
that's the perfect response. Like,
Yes.
that is a place of privilege for you to sit there and be like, no, they don't deserve to have that lab grown food.
Well, and I even, and this is in the
I just
book,
got
but
chills. That was great. That was great.
I I point out that like the plastic question. We know plastics aren't great. Like this isn't that's not a debate. Like they're
Yeah.
not good for the environment. They take forever to break down. We don't have great ways of dealing with the waste. Um, like, but the problem is we don't have a better solution,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So glass is a resource limited, or silica to make glass is resource limited, and it um, is heavy and it breaks and it's expensive.
Yep.
Same thing with metal, so it doesn't break, but it's also expensive. It's expensive to recycle, etc. And so just like pointing out these, hey, here's a problem, here's a simple solution, just stop. And it's like, well, okay, but what else are you affecting? Are you
Yeah.
affecting food availability? Are you affecting by just saying, okay, well, we'll switch to a more expensive container? Well, now some people don't get to eat
Yeah.
Right.
because
100%.
that
Drives the
they're
price
right
up.
on the cusp
Yeah.
of being able to eat and going up a little bit. Now they've got to make sacrifices somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's an incredibly uh, difficult spot to be to understand that, like, yeah, I know that this choice is not perfect, but this choice makes sure that the most people possible can benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I wish
Absolutely.
we got to end on that. That was perfect.
Yeah,
That was a
that
perfect ending.
yeah.
Why don't you tell our listeners where they could, like you said, you had a blog, if you have a
Mhm.
website, you said you were on other podcasts. If you want to plug them all, man.
Sure. So I work at the Center for Research on Ingredient Safety here at Michigan State University. You can go on our website. It's Chris, which is CRIS dot MSU dot edu. And you can see all the groups and organizations we deal with, whether it's food companies or whether it's regulators with the FDA or other academics. And we have a weekly blog that comes out. We, at this point, have a few hundred blogs on our website
Nice.
covering the gamut of topics from basic toxicology concepts to like dose and what is hazard versus risk to things that you might run into every day. So questions like uh, are pesticide residues hurting me? Or questions like actually one of our most popular ones, which is wild to me, is petroleum jelly. And is it safe? But it says
It's
let's
the
let's
petroleum.
name.
let's
It's the
let's not
name.
dive into why it's the most popular, please.
It's the name.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or we have like vaccine information on there,
Sunscreen, do you have that on
information
there? Because
about
I
heavy
saw
metals.
something big
So
on
if you
that.
are more interested about in heavy metal exposure, you can go to chris.msu.edu/metals, and it gives you all the basics, as well as explaining magnitude or scale. So understanding what a part per million or a part per billion or a part per trillion is.
Like,
So like a part per billion is like equivalent to 1 inch and 32,000 miles. So when we're
oh, I
talking
Oh,
love
about
that.
jeez.
I love that.
when we're talking about these vanishingly small amounts in our food, uh, gives something that's a little more tangible than just saying PBB, PPT,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
people don't
People don't
don't really
understand that.
understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so all of our information's on there. I've been on the Unbiased Science podcast. I've been on the Today Show. And some of my colleagues have also been on different programs. And so you can find it all on our website. And yeah, I appreciate your time and willingness to have me on.
Awesome.
What's your Instagram, just so people can go
My Instagram handle is ToxDocJoe.
Yes.
I'm not on there as much as I'd like to be between work and three little ones, but I try to be as active as I can.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Joe, thank you so much, man. It was a pleasure. And I really want to do a part two. So we're going to have more specifics for you to dive into instead of just being a big general
Yeah,
discussion.
happy to be on and discuss. I
Awesome.
like what I do, so I'm happy to do it.
Great.
Awesome.
Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, man.
Yeah.
So on behalf of Balanced Bodies, we just want to say thank you for joining us on this episode of the Balanced Bodies Blueprint.
We are committed to bringing valuable content. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd greatly appreciate it if you can take a moment and like it and leave a 5-star review.
On Apple, just go to the show, scroll down to the bottom and rate it there. If you're on Spotify, go to the show's page, click the 3 dots, and you can rate it there as well.
And if you believe in the power of knowledge, share this episode on your social media to try and get the information out there to as many people as possible.
And as you navigate your own path towards better health, remember that Balanced Bodies is forever in your corner. See you all next week.
The podcast content may include discussions of medical topics and health-related information. However, the information provided should not be considered exhaustive or complete, and it should not be relied upon as a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment.